So this is a direct follow-on from the last video. Feeling excited, feeling anxious, feeling angry, feeling passionate, feeling low, feeling happy, feeling depressed, sexual feelings. All these feelings are a happening of the nervous system. When you feel anxious, maybe you get a tightness in your chest, maybe your stomach feels uneasy, which is a happening of the nervous system. When you feel happy, excited, the whole energy within your body changes, again, which is a happening of the nervous system. All the feelings I listed, all the feelings I discussed in that last video, and all the feelings I'll continue to discuss throughout the course of this video are all a happening of the nervous system. Now, in that last video, I was suggesting that ultimately these kind of feelings arise as a direct byproduct of your personal perspective. And again, in that last video, I explained exactly what I mean when I use the expression personal perspective. But I'll write what I mean by personal perspective in the comment section of this video, if anyone's interested. Anyway, look. So, personal perspective, as we go about our daily life, operates involuntarily. And what this means is nothing's ever clean cut and finished, in the sense that when somebody verbally compliments you, if somebody verbally compliments you, maybe a certain feeling arises within you as a result of that compliment. But as soon as their mouth is shut, the compliment's finished. Same goes for when somebody insults you. Somebody insults you verbally. Maybe a certain feeling arises within you, but as soon as their mouth is shut, the insult is finished. When you see something, whether you see something physically in front of you or whether you see something on the TV, on the news, if you see something, a certain feeling arises. As soon as you turn your head away, or as soon as you turn that TV off, it's out of sight. Finished. But the thought, the memory of that compliment, the memory of that insult, the memory of whatever it was you saw, the memory stays with you and carries on. And so therefore, as a result of the memory carrying on, any feelings which arose also carry on. Because memory, which is a part of your personal perspective, gives continuity to feelings. Memory gives continuity to feelings. Now, listen, I'm not in any way suggesting that feelings cannot sustain on their own naturally. I'm not suggesting that. When you boil a pan of water on the stove, if you boil a pan of water, maybe you're boiling your boiled eggs. When you boil a pan of water on the stove, if you move that pan away from the heat source, that pan will still be hot to touch even after a few minutes. If you touch that pan even after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes maybe, you're still going to burn your fingers on that pan, even though you've moved it away from the heat source. You know what I'm saying? In the same sense that... So what I'm saying is, that pan won't revert back to room temperature instantly, is what I'm saying. In the same way, if any particular feeling arises within you as you go about your daily life, of course, it might take a certain amount of time for that feeling to dissipate on its own naturally. But because personal perspective, which is thought, which is memory, is always in operation, any feelings which arise simply never have the opportunity to dissipate on their own naturally. Because again, memory, thought, personal perspective, gives continuity to our feelings. And the irony is this: thought, personal perspective, creates the feeling in the first place, and then thought gives continuity to the feeling. I don't know whether you see that. Now, what else is fascinating is this: not only can thought spawn feelings of a certain nature, feelings of a certain nature can spawn thoughts of a certain nature. I don't know whether you see that either. Now, here's an interesting question for you. Can feelings arise on their own naturally, in the sense that, do we simply wake up in the morning feeling a certain way? Personally, I'd say no. Generally, I think it'd be fair to say, or maybe I'm speaking for myself here, I don't know, but generally, you wake up in the morning, the alarm clock goes off, and potentially you might begin thinking to yourself, oh man, is it really that time? Is it really time to get up? And as a result of thinking this, more than likely you will feel tense. You will feel conflicted within yourself as a result of thinking about the alarm clock going off. Oh, is it really time to get up? Does that make sense? If you think negatively about your alarm clock going off, you're going to feel tense, you're going to feel conflicted, is what I'm saying. Maybe you was having a lovely dream. Maybe you was having an unpleasant dream. And so even while you was asleep, whatever it was you was dreaming about might have stirred up some feelings within you. And then you've woken up with those feelings still inside of you. Does that make sense? I don't know whether anyone gets this. So what I'm saying is, no, we don't simply just wake up feeling a certain way. Generally, thought, which is personal perspective, thought is always in operation from the moment we wake up in the morning, as we go about our daily lives. And it's thought, personal perspective, which gives rise, which evokes our feelings. Feelings are very personal. I'm sure you've noticed this. We all have feelings attached to something. And the feelings that we have attached to different factors of our life, the feeling itself arises involuntarily. What I mean by that is this. My son, my little boy, my little son, Edward, he's 5 years old. He's the most precious thing in the world to me. My precious little man. My son. So even just the thought of my son potentially evokes certain feelings within me. And now whatever I call those feelings, I might give that feeling the name happiness. I might call that feeling a passion. I might call it a passionate feeling. Whatever I call that feeling which arises as a result of thinking about my son, the feeling itself arises involuntarily. I don't intentionally conjure that feeling, is what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Feelings might be attached to memories, a certain band, a certain piece of music, a certain movie, a particular subject. It's potential you could have feelings attached to any of these things. But my point is this: the feeling which any of these factors evokes, the feeling itself arises involuntarily. Of course, if I know that a particular piece of music evokes a certain feeling within me, of course I might intentionally listen to that piece of music in order to evoke that feeling within me. You know what I'm saying? But my point is, the feeling itself arises involuntarily. I don't know if anybody sees this at all, but feelings are a natural occurrence. Feelings are not something to be demonized or denied or suppressed. But let me put it to you like this. Maybe if you're a male, maybe you've been brought up to be a man. You've been brought up to be a man. You know what I'm saying? Whatever that means. So maybe you've been brought up to be a man. And so therefore, you know, as you go about your daily life, if for whatever reason the feeling of fear arises within you, because you've been brought up to be a man, don't cry, you've got to be tough, and all this old business. If you've been brought up to be a man, and maybe the feeling of fear arises as you go about your daily life, that feeling of fear will no doubt make you feel ashamed, because you're supposed to be a man, remember? You're not meant to feel frightened. And so, ironically, what that means is the feeling of fear has arisen within you, and you begin thinking to yourself, I shouldn't be frightened. I shouldn't have this feeling of fear. And as a result of thinking this, and as a result of thinking in this way, you begin to feel ashamed. You feel down. You feel low. So it's like a vicious circle. Thought creates all sorts of different feelings. So, do you see that? Feelings arise as the byproduct of thought. And so any action made to control feelings is in itself an act of thought. If you allow me to repeat that again, feelings themselves, feelings are the byproduct of thought. And so any action you make to control feelings is in itself the act of thought, which evokes its own feeling, which would more than likely be tension, conflict. I don't know whether I've done that any justice with the words I used or not. I don't know whether you see that or not. So if a feeling arises, then it just is. If a feeling arises, it just is. It is so. So just to be aware of it is all that needs be. Not suppress it, not deny it, not control it. Because denial, suppression, control is all the movement of thought, again, which creates its own feeling, which would therefore create a feeling of tension and conflict. I don't know whether you see that at all. So is it possible, just simply as you go about your daily life, to be aware of any feeling that might arise? And that's it. Just be aware of it. Is that possible? Look. Have a sip of water. My old throat's getting a bit dry. Look, with all due respect, I don't know whether you actually see that thought is the creator of your feelings. Because myself, for the majority of my life, I never saw that. I never actually saw the truth of that myself. And so maybe if you don't see it, maybe you live your daily life with, maybe you live with a reoccurring feeling as you live your daily life. Why? Well, maybe you think of yourself in a certain way. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you think low of yourself. Maybe you think you're worthless. Maybe you think that you're ugly. Whatever. Maybe you think ill of yourself. And as a result of thinking about yourself in this way, you feel anxious, when you open your front door and go out into society, if you have a low, if you think about yourself, think ill of yourself, and you go out into society, of course you'll more than likely feel anxious. I don't know whether you see that or not. Don't know whether you're even aware of how you think about yourself and how it affects your feelings. So if you do think low of yourself and you feel anxious, you don't want to feel anxious, do you? And so ironically, you then on a daily basis, if that thought, if how you think of yourself is really ingrained and you live with that reoccurring anxious feeling on a daily basis, of course you'll begin to think to yourself, I don't want to feel anxious. Why am I feeling anxious? And by thinking, and as a result of thinking in this way, that anxious feeling will sustain. I'm governed by words here, I do apologise. I hope I'm doing this justice, but do you understand what I'm saying? And when the next day rolls around, if you don't see that thought is the byproduct of your thought, is the creator of your anxious feeling, when the next day rolls around, you wake up and you think to yourself, I hope I don't have that anxious feeling again today. And as a result of thinking this, that anxious feeling returns again today. And then the next day, and then the next day. I don't know whether anybody sees what I'm saying here or not. Look. These videos are not intended to be lessons. In the sense that I don't want you to watch. I don't make these videos so people watch these videos and learn from what I'm saying, because that's absolutely meaningless to me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, with all due respect, I could be talking a load of old shit. I might well be. You have to see what I'm saying. You have to see the truth of what I'm saying for yourself. My purpose of making these videos is to potentially evoke a natural attention within you, and so that you see the truth of all this for yourself. Inattention, if there's a natural attention within you, there can be awareness of the whole movement of your personal perspective, and therefore seeing the whole movement of your personal perspective, you see how feelings arise, how feelings manifest in the first place. Attention, as I mentioned in the last video, attention can bring about an absence of your personal perspective. And so therefore, if any feelings do arise, that absence of your personal perspective can allow feelings to dissipate on their own naturally. And again, as I said in that last video, it's only in the absence of your personal perspective that you will ever feel neutral. Again, I apologise if the words I used haven't done any justice, but I hope you see what I'm saying here. So, the ending question is this: is it possible, as you go about your daily life, is it possible to be completely attentive, naturally? Are you paying attention? Live your life and see. That in itself is attention. Which is the answer? You might see this, you might not. All the best. Take care.